paringol ngalu kontongal tol nalu kontongol you know mutalla murunta nanjam ka continent na kachal la min yalon ko wala weden din na banko tanyala surtout kul la min weden din polisol la anin polisol fanyal anin mansakunda la ke Barrow la ukula kono iyo nyamu kula da mi yalon ko sava awujo kono selang sanji fula karwora wala mimbena karwora wala sila yo akakumaya bage kaji ben kulla min beden din you know masakunda kuma kan wala ke Barrow la nin ibe manyala min la ko kono so wallam kulte min kumayata yo ni wada siron kono la nga mo dandam moy min diamuta kulla yo abe wala kono president o abe wala kono you know, Ahmed Jite, now, today, the Attorney General. So, today's conversation will be focused on the investigations that were done, you know, what actually brought about, you know, taking this case to court, the Attorney General's responsibilities, the rearrest, and including as well, you know, the pool head and, you know, among Kenya, Lamakalamta, and all of those things will be things that we will be discussing today. But where we are going to start from is just matters that relate to the Attorney General. Now, the Attorney General told us in their press conference today, which I think was very unnecessary, was an attempt to divert attention. But we are back here to make sure that, you know, we are still within the parameters of the conversations of our nation. That nobody under any circumstances diverts the attentions of the public to something else. Now, what the Attorney General tried to do today is to tell us about their hybrid code and, of course, their appointment of a prosecutor. Now, unveiling that today is not what the country is looking forward to. The country was waiting for the Attorney General to come out and tell us matters as they relate to who killed the cops. That the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice went to court and failed woefully, and then the citizenry is expecting the Attorney General to come and address questions in relation to that court case and everything that has to do with it. But to divert attention, the Attorney General moved from the burning issues of the country to tell us about a prosecutor that is actually appointed to actually take issues of Jammeh and the Jammeh atrocities. Attorney General, I want to remind you that all the Jammeh atrocities are to get justice, just like the atrocities under your regime, and that you cannot excuse yourself for, and in your attempt to divert attention, we will bring you back on check. And where we are going to start from is the Attorney General, while answering questions, agreed that the government acted unlawfully by what he referred to as the rearrest of Usainu Bojang and Ami Bojang. I don't refer to it as rearrest. I refer to that act as kidnapping. Now, kidnapping in the sense that the court had acquitted and discharged these two, and they were supposed to leave. There was a coordination between the authorities at the prisons, the police, and the leadership of the police, as well as the Ministry of Interior. The Attorney General, in his self-styled way of pulling head, said to us that he was not aware. But this is a case between the state and the Bojangs. And the Attorney General was represented by the Director of Public Prosecution, who at the end of the case filed, whatever appeal that they refer to it. But while you file that appeal, the entire government machinery must take full responsibility, because it is the government of the Gambia that kidnapped Ami and Usainu. And the Attorney General of the government of the Gambia has admitted that that act was illegal and unlawful. And that responds to Ahmed, how do you call it? Ahmed Jite. Ahmed ko, police ole nyantale sembo use funding kele kang, pour kele respect o murundi fang kang. ko respect ko kasoto no sembo do randa kanna woto nyanta fonninkele bute la le nyante tajirinte yalal pour ka respect ko soton bare ko nyanta fonninkele bute la mun dalil la kankado fonninkele finditale ko polisol albe nyimmin na te luwanta yalon andun tolta sonna wala na nyimban ko kan attorney general ya wala sembentu yako fonninkele ya minke wala muto nyati wala mutilimoti polisol ya minke wala mutilimbal yani luwanta yalati woto mune polisol bula luwanta yala jumale polisol bula luwanta yala barani wali luwanta yala ke, and the attorney general told us that that is regrettable. If it is not, it does not need to be regrettable. It needs to be prosecuted. Because nintanga luwanta yake, iben sambala luwa nyati lingolla. Allah mansa kunda ya luwanta yake, mini ye wo order di, mini ye wo nyatonka yake, wo luwanta yala, al nyanta luwale lala wolokam, attorney general. So for you to come out and tell us that, of course, you know, it's regrettable. It's not regrettable. It was a calculated move that was perfected by your actions and the actions of the prison authorities and the police. So it's the Gambia police force working together with the prison services and, of course, the Interior Ministry that went on to effect that kidnapping. So if the Attorney General does not know and he wasn't aware, then the Attorney General, it becomes your responsibility as the custodian of law in this country to actually find out who did and, of course, bring the perpetrators of that crime to justice. Otherwise, at the end of your appeal, we are taking legal actions against the government of the Gambia. And you already admitted in camera that, of course, the act was illegal. Karanin tolonga tol samba kiti yo la video mo ku kelena tembe min follow land la ko attorney general la foko nyen la nyingri arrest, and of course this kidnapping is actually illegal and unlawful. But why do we think we should normalize the police actually acting on illegal orders? That becomes the question. What Ahmed Attorney General yete ansale without even talking to you directly, because you talk police wole nyantale funding kele bute e funding kele tajirinte ya ka sembo use funding kele kan pour ke to la respect ko murunde ne fonka but respect ko buka sorono luanta ya kono police wole luanta ya leke, and then this is basically what the Attorney General has admitted to. But in covering himself, he said he wasn't aware, because kabiri nyimbeke ka wato minna. I know a couple of people that we are talking or we are directly writing to the Attorney General. And his response to many of those were like, mantara bankoka. Ila taroni ila tarabaliaje, ila nyatonka ya bijele. Almantilingo nintonya tamandi ya Attorney General. But in your manipulative tactics of diverting attention, even whereas you actually got a prosecutor for, atrocities during Jammeh's era, the prosecutor is not in the Gambia. The prosecutor has not landed in the country. The prosecutor is not in your press conference. Why are you unveiling a prosecutor that is not even visible to the people? Because if you are going to organize a press conference about the prosecutor, wait for the prosecutor to arrive in the country. Because you actually put the cart before the horse. And that is why when you are asked about matters relating to the prosecution, he said, we will wait for the prosecutor to answer that. So you should have waited for the prosecutor to be in the country to actually ask or answer questions relating to the prosecution. So why do you organize a press conference in relation to the appointment of a prosecutor who is not in the country, who cannot answer questions in relation to whatever that is being asked, and you yourself cannot answer those questions because the prosecutor should answer them? Therefore, you organize a press conference before time. That is because you want to divert attention from the matter that actually matters to the people of the country. We will make sure that the attentions are still on what matters, and that is who killed the cops. Attorney General, you told us about your success rates of about 78% of cases that, the state have been involved in and all of that. That is good. 78% is a good track record. That does not in any way, negate the fact that we need to know and we ought to know and we must know who killed the cops. Attorney General. And then to say that, of course, we have appealed and the case is also something to be heard, therefore there is not much to say. But Attorney General, you're mulling accused and discharged, and the police, including the the prison police, decided to kidnap them because they were not even released. The bailiff got to the prison and, of course, they signed the documents. They called the police, come and get them. They hand them over to the police. And the police kidnapped them and, of course, took them to police headquarters and brought them back to Mile 2 without any court order. Onyon tilimbaliani luatinyani luantayani na mansoto nyumbanko kang within this last 10 years of your regime. Why? What are you hiding? What are you hiding, Attorney General? But Attorney General, I want to bring you back, because there are 3 things that we are looking at in this case. When you are discussing matters of the law, even though you don't need to be a lawyer to actually understand some of these things, all that you got to put in is thinking. And thinking is one of the most important and, of course, relevant things in human life. You should have the independence to think and think independently without prejudice at all, and then look at all aspects of everything that somebody says, that you can have multiple interpretations to them and have a clear understanding of what exactly they meant to say. And then in thinking, there are multiple, dimensions to it, because you either think critically, you analytically think, or of course you think reflectively, and among other ways of thinking. But in this discussion, we will inject analytical thinking, critical thinking, and of course reflective thinking. Now, let's analyze the fact that investigations were conducted. A file was submitted to the Attorney General's office, reviewed, and a legal opinion was given to take the matter to court. We got to court, and of course, we begin to lie from one point to the other. Until the end of the case, there is acquittal and discharge of these personnel. And then we decided to appeal and force an arrest on these people illegally. Where does that leave the Attorney General as a human being, as the custodian of our laws, as an advisor to the President on legal matters? Here is what happened. In investigating every matter, or in any moment that you have to identify a suspect, in a conversation with some other people, we identified that there are 2 methods to it, or there are 2 possibilities to it. It's either you intentionally identified a wrong suspect, or you ignorantly identified a wrong suspect, or you intentionally identified the right suspect, or you ignorantly identified the right suspect. So it's either right or wrong, but depending on your intentions and then the direction of your investigations. But in this case, there is only one possibility. There was an intentional identification of a wrong suspect. That is my belief, and I stand by it. But one would ask, why do you think it was an intentional identification of a wrong suspect? Simply because near Momuta, anybody could have been the suspect, because it must be somebody. So if Useno became the identified person as the suspect, that is normal. If Useno is investigated, that is normal. But if it later appeared to be an intentional or a deliberate attempt to identify a wrong person, that is wrong and that is illegal. So Useno's identification in this case is an illegal act that was masterminded by the regime. Why did I say so? Moronia momuteka ko ntolo sobitalo ko itale police olofa. Andung mene kisi la ko nyonkonole. Wo kisi ro kono atole miya muta akoita alla ko nyina telefono de waya atandila ko tonya amanta nyindula kari, and then ali tauta taunte ya kono ali ya long ali tauta ali baratala. That is intentional, by formatting the suspect's phone. I was expecting the journalist to even ask the Attorney General, why did the police investigators format the phone of the suspect? The Attorney General might not be in the right position to answer those questions and would say maybe you should ask the police, but it was important to bring it to his attention because it is the Attorney General's office who decided to take the matter to court. But I am also aware that there was no legal opinion on this matter. That means that a file was submitted to the Attorney General's office and the Attorney General decided that this case must go to court without any legal opinion. I dare the Attorney General to provide the legal opinion that was provided to this case before it was forwarded to court, and who among the staff of the Attorney General's office actually made that legal opinion. So there was no legal opinion. It was a rush to court. But why did they rush it? Let me now tell you how criminal procedures or criminals operate in their own criminality. Yaje, when they got Usainu Bojang, on the 13th. After 30 hours, Sankare gave a whole version, and everything in what Sankare told us was a lie. But at that time, we did not know that all of it was a lie. But a few of it was already known that they were lies. And the few that were known to be lies was he was at the UDP court case and he was the guy in hoodie. On that same day was when we knew that it is a lie that Usainu does not work at Brikama Area Council and is not a member of the UDP. So most of what Sankare said actually, fell flat on the day that he actually made those pronouncements. That they did not hold any water. They are probably criminals conniving to actually frame a political entity. And we move to the second aspect of it because we have to look at the chronology of events to understand how culpable the government is, including the Attorney General and of course his, DPP. In his statement, he made mention some of the things he did not know. They've had successes in many things. But this one is not because that the police are incapable. It's not that the police are not good at investigating matters. It's not that the police do not have the sophisticated personnel to actually know who did what. It is because it was an inside job and it needs to be hidden, and then it cannot be hidden. Therefore, the police got exposed in that regard. Now, reflect on what had happened. The police command organized a press conference. And in that press conference, after 30 hours of getting Usainu Bojang, they organized this press conference to speak to the nation. Meanwhile, Usainu is in captivity. He cannot speak for himself. And then any other person who will be speaking on his behalf outside cannot be credibly trusted. It's just going to be based on speculations. Therefore, the credible authority to speak on the matter was the government. And the government already got Usainu in captivity. Therefore, the government could sell a single narrative to the public to pollute the minds of the public so that the public can believe in that single narration because the other side did not have the opportunity to speak because they are in captivity. But we will give a counter narrative to the narrative of the regime because their intention was to make sure that the entire public is with them. But that is one thing that I often tell my students back at the university. Even the professor makes mistakes. Therefore, progressively and consistently, you must maintain your skepticism and independence. Mako wax rek degala lolu amu fi ci aduna xana nga ñaka xel. Anything that is brought to you, you should be able to think independently. And of course, with skepticism to verify if they are facts or just whatever somebody would choose to say. Because even the greatest of scientists in the world would actually make mistakes. No man is an island and no man is perfect. So just because I said it doesn't necessarily make it the truth. So the police told us that Usainu Bojang is a rebel. He was in the Casamas rebellion. He killed the cops. He confessed to it. He did this. And we've seen even media houses that did not in any way say the police said, or according to this person, they authoritatively wrote that Usainu Bojang had already confessed to the killings. Wallebe maloko no be. Because police only ofaniala for it only lot of ofaniala. Wale some of the journalists did not believe what the police were saying and they began to ask the critical questions. But the reason why they came up with that press conference was to sell a single narrative so that the entire public can actually, be with the police in their line of thinking and of course believe that this person did it so that they can go and run with that single narrative in court and, prosecute this person with the single narrative and incarcerate him with the single narrative. And that is why there was a need to actually sell a counter narrative to dispel all their lies and deceit on this matter. So that is why when you reflect on it, everything they had said turned out to be untrue. Now the question is, who investigated this matter? Now say no mutala woman ke luati nyati follow den. Ya kisi woman ke luati nyati follow. Bare ya long ko tonya ining ala tema ining kila tema ining evidence olu tema ining mini be searing investigation okono ko attenteng han wo be ko nga lakang moro wo mo tilimbali yalti wo mo luwanta yalti wo mo kuriality man sakunda barata walla jam ka tunte maje dunia dulato anywhere that you get a suspect. It's normal to get a wrong suspect. And it's normal after certain investigations, you realize that we got the wrong person. You actually let the person go and look for the right person. But whereas you know that the person did not do it and you intentionally want to allege him, that is criminal. Because there is no reason for the police to format Useinu's phone. There is no reason for the police to say that Mama Jabi, who is the reason why they actually captured this person, that she gave them an audio and they gave her $1 million, for the police and of course the DPP in particular, the Attorney General's office, to come to court and lie that the audio is lost. So the Attorney General is now in this case visibly that includes the Attorney General, because the DPP was there to represent the Attorney General, and the Attorney General, in the view of things, is part of the greater scheme of the criminals. Kato ni one thing, Attorney General la representative titano la kiti bungoto ayata rantola mansakunda 1 million odi Mama Jabila pur Attorney General la representative yata kiti bungoto kafoko wo audio mi atinale 1 million odi Mama la wo filital Attorney General journalist wala nyante nyinin kalale muni atinale la DPP ya fanyani tapale yafo kiti bungoto kato atolla doko momenti wala nyinte ka tonyani ntino sabati ndi nyimbanko ka mobetema irrespective of their political denomination, nationality or wherever they come from, but you make sure that justice is upheld in this country. But not to be criminals in framing innocent people and even lying in court just to secure a conviction. So the office of the Attorney General did not go to court to actually make sure that there is justice in this case, but they went to court to vehemently fight tooth and nail for a conviction of an innocent person. That is why even the investigation have suggested that formatting the dude's phone was wrong. And of course, it is so wrong to actually say that this person works for the UDP. He was at the UDP court case in Banjul. He had a gun. Mama got the accused, or we use courts to get the person. Now tell me, where is the file that was submitted to the Attorney General's office that somebody had reviewed it and of course, gave a legal opinion that of course we need to go to court? I want to see that legal opinion. I dare you, Attorney General, to publish the legal opinion and tell us who are the people that actually looked into this matter and of course gave you that legal opinion to go to court. And let the Gambian people know the police file that actually suggests that Usainu Bojang was a rebel. He works in Brikama Area Council. He had co-conspirators. Part of the money was recovered. He wore a boots that did not fit him in court. Wolibe in their totality speaks to what the nothingness and of course the intellectual stupidity of the Attorney General and his gross incompetence. If I were the Attorney General today, I will resign. But he will not. That is why he said to you that so long the president is happy. He is not working for the Gambia, he's working for the president. So long the president is happy because he is the appointing authority. So long he is happy with what he is doing. Hani ayatara ko he is losing 100% of the cases in court. Hani ayatara Gambian ko momo malatela fereng. Hani ayatara Gambian ko be along ko he is part of the greater scheme of the criminality. He is still going to be the Attorney General because the president still trusts him. Nena motonyati. Itabola je, ite fonyo la nyendo kuola. Katu itoli amena dunia muna fulo droneta nenkodo, mi ya lonko banko molo denta minne, atol nintoli be denta minne, al nyanta tilingo ninto nyata amane dano, al nintoli min tema. Ntola namu kodo min ka atolo jo, atolo ka murunka, kantolo joy yanina banko kanka toka luanta ya lanka. But it's good that you admitted that that was an illegal act. So the police should be ashamed of themselves. And anybody who was trying to defend that illegality is actually, you should be ashamed of yourself. And then you listen to my Ahmed Fati, on a platform this morning, and he said the president's statement was his opinion. But Lamin J. Dabo should actually be arrested and he should tell us why or who actually killed the cops. But if you see a dishonest man deliberately attempting to distort facts or actually injecting selective reasoning and thinking in trying to bamboozle the mentality of the people, but the people that are smarter than you and they understand your politics more than you, and of course probably understand your field of expertise better than you cannot deceive such a people. And I will inject a little bit of reflective thinking to this. My Ahmed Fati, kabiri nyimman sakundai haruna jata fa, in Fonyi. Ite my Ahmed Fati, ite la fintite ko. Obey the law or be consumed by the law. Alebe bulala luale noma, wala luwa yala kunung mai ko fo lungo min nay me mira fan ko hadama di wala fata molle ya bun kido la ya fa akete te fela ko yaya ka mole jibe nu nyame ni mo fa kamera ko sisiri wala fata mai ite wo attitude le tandi wolungo mai ite ni gambian ko be konti bo so la na lungo sita because what happened in the past, no matter who they support, even if they support Yaya Jammeh, they don't deserve to die the way that person died. And for you to criminally come out and even try to castigate and further send threats to those people, to actually alienate those people, to go even to a point that you actually militarize that region, obey the law or be consumed by the law. That means Haruna Jatta's killing was a consumption by the law. Luwa jumala ko ite ko you need to kill a protester. Itele fanya foje mai fati. Itele lota Gambia be nyala. Television auto iko wole kidol le be bulu this local weapons le be wole bulu. Itele wuli te kontrol ko wole mu rebel leti wole atinna wole fata o fanya sifala and then ite kolo ko ni wole man sonka bulato la man sakunda noma luwa le be kununna. Mai fati kunu itele o fajang. But Mayitala lafta ka Laminje Dabo Doya, iko he is seeking relevance. The most irrelevant politician in the Gambia is you. And you know why I said so? Barrow traded you for a partnership with the APRC. Katu ite APRC la mollebe fenko la protest la police liye fa wala soldier liye fa whoever did it either economic or whatever ite murunta you justify that killing by saying that obey the law or be consumed by the law and that this person is killed because they actually had local weapons and you could not in any way verify that. And of course it was said that everything you had said was a lie. Mai woto ite manke tonya modi ite mo tonya tano baralalti ite modo ya no la nyimbanko kam. But still on that reflective thinking, it is the same you that the president fired because he was looking to betray the United Democratic Party and looking for potential partnership with the APRC, and it was one of the conditions of the APRC. Kadu tele APRC batandi nyala wo time mi alonko ila ku man die fereng and they wanted you to be kicked out of government. And of course Barrow ya alonko motete bulu motete koma. So it was easy to trade you for the APRC. You are the most irrelevant politician in this country. You cannot in any way try to demean and of course characterize the Defense Council or try to actually shift the attention from the appeal to politics. That Madam Dabo should appoint me as his personal spokesperson. I need to be the self-appointed spokesperson for that person. Because one thing is, this is our case and we will not let you distract, the counsel for the case for your political desires, because it be mean, let be appointment, my reflective thinking would tell us that it will kumbola jankuno. In case be keri na sanje fula karworo. Ali tilimbalian in tajidintean in bataria sifa bere tiling usino bojana. You will never see me sit here and start crying. Ita manke nyaton koti day. Ita mu normal ankolti. Cause na kundura manta fuita kasi telefono lo kunde. Kumbo feka siki. Ita mu ke wudelti. Yo gori tapet nga bro. Yo yafi togon ngen rey boy APRC nga tok si télé bi si dëkk bi ni nga ne ñooñu ay feteli traditional weapons la gaay amé won fekk lolu yépp dara du si dëgga mu neex président bi mu xol la mu xamné yow do nitu dëgga mu daxala ci biti mu andi wa APRC di liggéey ak ñom ngir ñooñu ñoko ne bo daxul ki ñun duñ liggéey ak yow kon yow may amo ko fi xass yow amo ko fi tutal te Dabo lum wax yow mëno distort facts yoyu non because koku lum wax moy ne in the totality of evidence during this trial we knew what happened and we know the people that perpetrated this crime. You know what? Dabo's statement speaks to something for tomorrow, not today. Katu ninja lo singo be fora on kantonya ni ntilingo te tamala. Lungo minna nyimman sakunda be jila. Puru nga natilingo nintonya tamande kula mimbe denim police la sayala. That will be the day that we will actually go back to the archives and look at this statement and understand the weight it carries. So to say that, Laminje Dabo need to be questioned, and that brings to the perspective the president's statement, because you told us that the president was just giving his opinion, but the president was not in a bantabar. The president was actually on a tour that is funded by taxpayers' money, that is actually on a state function, because he is actually on a tour that is funded by the Gambian people. Therefore, any statement he makes there represents him as the head of state. But you want to now disintegrate the president from his person, Adama Barrow, because of his statement. Nim president wa kumo for min ninto nyani ntingo manta adron alka folo ko ala opinion no wati o manke masakunda la kuma kan wati bara president o muri wala e ka masaya bonda kan killing so may masaya murunda kan o buka keno the president at all times remains the president. And that is why the president must comport himself as a president at all times, because there is no way that you can differentiate presidency from the person of Adama Barrow, because Adama Barrow and the president is just one. Or the president have a right to his opinion. Now, if the president has a right to his opinion as a private citizen, then the law has a right to arrest the president as a private citizen, to ask him questions relating to who killed the cops. Therefore, the president as a private person, speaking in a private capacity, now needs to be arrested as a private person and be questioned as per why he said Usainu Darboe's hands are not clean in the killing of the cops, so that the president can tell us what he knows about Usainu Darboe's involvement in the killing of the cops. The president needs to be arrested and questioned as per why he said he believed that Usainu Bojang did kill the cops, to provide evidence that he have as a private citizen to that matter. Alta molti na karnola jang atol man karam molti alman dunia lo molti alman dunia faham molti alba tapalean intilimbali alla maitela tapalea itatam. You cannot deceive anybody. You are not smarter than anybody. You are just a criminal who actually jump with verbosity and think that verbosity is knowledge and power. No, it is not. Angale kambafo manke londiti kumabafo manke londiti. Londo is your ability to comport yourself and communicate with respect and decorum without constantly crying over things that do not matter. But my fighting, I'm ready to kumbota janko eko baronyo la fo sembola. Their greed was why they refused to pass the constitution. Itaman kumbo fengo fenna jam because a constitution failed to pass. As a politician who want to lead our country, how about nintola banko be janika woriara fa ite be fengo falal. But a constitution ola pass balia politiko kama. Itaman politiko use no water put way tambi. But iteka kumbo kode na nimero. Fo iteka siki gele telefono nyad. Moro nin kumbo bero taita kumbo ni pare na telefono mala ito nya fo moli. But ebe kumbo la puro moli ete kumbo to jibe. Ita sa femfo no moli. But this is not meant to put Kete doya bare fang long ye dandula long because itaman nyam mentality. Kunungete kumakangolo moejane being etala kumakang moejane. So we are actually reflecting on my party as a person and your track record since the coming in place of this government. Mansakunda natala drong itale jamfa kumashi itala ko halifa salamanke coalition la spokesperson. All of a sudden, you literally appear to be that self-appointed spokesperson for the coalition. My fati moling etalon itamanke lanna moti. Itamanke tonya moti, itamanke moti lindinti. Itata tonya nintilungo fasala. Wale atin na kabirin journalisto yenyi ninka. Woto adama min fodung ite muna je woto. Iko itata jabiri kela woto ite nata min noma. Wala mo lamin je dabo tikatu. You only want to discredit lamin je dabo. Barrow min for mi ya long kwa nintilungo nintonya manta. Iko he is a private citizen. Oh. Lamin J. Dabo is what? He's not a private citizen? He is not entitled to his opinion? And besides, even whereas it is not an opinion, he directed the government to where it should look. You cannot overlook that. And then turn around and say, oh, he must tell us the persons. And then now I will take you to the chronology of events to actually justify why Lamin J. Dabo said what he said. And then that directs the government to look inwardly and to investigate its own personnel. Where they fail to do, the country must continue to ask who killed the cops, because then and there we know that Jalole Simo before to the totality of evidence and of course the events sequentially and the way they happen only speaks to one thing: state complicity. So that state cannot turn again and try to ask the rhetorical question to Lamin J. Dabo. Oh, you said we know on the basis of the investigations and of course during the trial, then tell us. No, during the trial there was of course a prosecution and of course a defense. So therefore everything that was said that the prosecution knows. And the prosecution was actually lying in court. What will compel the prosecution to lie in court? This becomes the fundamental question that every Gambian need to ask the regime. Abe wala kona la fanyalu al kabirin kuo keta. So nyalon police wala fata la mobe sonda wala loko police fula bunta le fata kilimbara mate ikona. Kabiri waketa. On a normal investigation, alinyanta tala le police wala the force respondents. Ni wala futata nunje they needed to secure the area where this shooting happened. Alma woke until your forensic team got there the next day. The police understood that in simple investigation, the first thing to do is to make sure that you actually secure the crime scene. This crime scene was not secured on the day of the incident until their forensic experts got there the next day. So why did the police not secure the site? That is already one lapsus. Is it intentional? Is it deliberate? Or is it a mistake? Or is that an oversight? One. Fulanjambala, iko moto fele de nyimoto to your bystanders, because most of the times if you are the first responder, you actually utilize the bystanders. The things you hear from them, you document. So it was said that this vehicle belongs to the perpetrator of this crime. And that information was circulated all over the country. The police, upon getting the vehicle, took photos and everything. It was part of their master plan on the identification of the site. The vehicle was taken to Sukuta police station. Upon investigation, they realized that the owner of the vehicle is a police officer and orderly to a governor who is in possession of a marked pistol. Yokuo jindi duma imansonko wasamba kitiola. Moni atin na police oli yokuo jindi. Kato, this is a potential suspect and this is a potential perpetrator, and then his characteristics depict perfectly a potential shooter. Why did the police actually drop everything about the vehicle and never mentioned it in court until one of their witnesses mistakenly mentioned it? And then and there, J. Dabo asked the prosecution, do you have documents about this particular vehicle? And then the judge forced them, compelled them to actually give the defense that, documents relating to the vehicle. So what ayatina from the start of the case, the state was hiding documents. Why did they deliberately refuse to bring matters as they relate to that vehicle? That is a point. That is a point to look inwardly. That is a point to actually suggest that something did not go right. That is a point to say that, of course, something, somehow, might be looking dirty in the milk. Lolo mo fi am moto bi ku rey police moko mom lolou lañu fa taxaw wax ñu ne borom moto bi de mo rey ñi yeen ngeen ñew force respondant ngeen xol environment bi instead of ngeen sitio fu rey bi xewé nangule na def lolu nonu wow. Until the next day in the evening, or probably, I don't know what time that happened, that Francis Jata ak ñeneen yi seen forensic experts yi ñu sitio area bi. Now that means the site has been exposed for almost probably several hours. Why did you do that? Like, moto bi yen ngeen dugal ko si sen investigation bobu nonu, ngeen xam moto bi fum taxawon ak fum nekkon bala ngeen ko fay génné, ngeen map out all of that, and then ngeen dem ngeen seetlu affaire moto bi, ngeen realize the moto bi de police ako mom, te police bobu nonu mu ngi amé mark pistol, te mom orderly la. Kon dek ku ray police yi mun na nekk police bo xamantene mom mu ngi amé fetel, because mom mo depict the perfect characteristics of the shooter. Lolu yep ngeen bay ko gannaaw waye lutax ngeen don noba lolu ngeen noba ko besen ben witness mu mistake mu mention ko ci code bi defense bi meuna la ne kon moto amon na fofu kon ku mo moto bi fum joge ana moto bi ana documents you indicate moto bi yenang don noba documents yi. The defense actually called on the judge to make sure you people give those documents to them. Lamin amon ligeyam, Lamin du may fati ko yakar lawyer nga dem uti Lamin bo amute Lamin bo amé may denga koko di nuti dega du nitu dara nitu halis la koko ñu wax fi demba ne Adama Barrow nguuram bi sen greed motax nangu ñu am constitution bu bes mu tok fi di joyal askan bi waye koko mo tok tay mu ne Adama gëna bax. You see this double-tongued political psychopaths trying to actually come to a media trying to tell us that because of their verbosity they should be trusted. Li mo fi xew. But let's still go into the chronology of events. Now that we understand that this particular person who owns this vehicle depict a perfect characteristics of a potential shooter, let's look at the military witnesses. Mo Saba, out of nowhere, let's say coincidentally, are the persons that witnessed this event. And then everything they had said in court were all lies and fabrications. And waka keno nyadile, that speaks to only one thing. You three military officers don't know who your senior man is. That is a lie. You three military officers claim that you had, battle shock, but yet you were running after what you refer to as a gunman. That is a lie. You people claim that he shot two, killed two, and of course injured one. That is 3 bullets. And then he was firing at you while you were taking cover on fence line. And of course, you came to court God, one of you would say, ask kola doba fola ko, yellow haftan, albe kuma kalantango fola nyoma, dolo ba fola kon tolma sude, bare atoloma momi sude, baratol nyako jele naka ton katolo bunki dola. Ania for nyama tole ba fola ko kula manta kuja. Woto, there is a reasonable suspicion to think that you people knew something about the matter. Because again, you depict the perfect characteristics of a potential shooter. Kato, alamo soja rolleti, ale kidi fayo nole, ale kido Kenya lonne. So ni moya to londe, nyim police o minta mo nyim motote, ani nyim soja sabo ye usieno londe. Ita ba fala juma nyine mo kono, mi ya lonko fit the perfect characteristics of a shooter. Ka ndolnga usieno min lo mi ya lonko ani sise ringota fanola. Muna mo tonyate nyim ko kono. Wale atina lamin is inferring you and directing you to where you should investigate. Almalla fal bulo chodi la jelade. Allah fal nya kasi la jelalde. Allah fal nya biti la jelalde. But alba nya yela la jelala because we will compel you to actually investigate the matter. Nina mo tonyati. Katu alman dalil wo dalil la soto pour ka tonyata no fo Gambian ko le nyin koto. Let's move to the next level of concealment. Itoloko kabiri press conference o kumande. I remember Momondo Gajaga of QTV. Ay nyininkaro keje. Nyininkaro miye police ole dimi bake. Akoye ko jumale munkidi si fale nyim police ole fa. Bara abe nyininka kangala tumo minna akoye loko pistulo. You can hear the agitation from the DIG. Mi yalon ko moibuka alon faka angale kangala faka maneka kangala fala obe dundi nyoko no komuna kili moibuka alon faka min fon. Bare ala jabiro lo kono akoye tolo mafoko itole kidileje. That means the government at the time or at the material time of the police organizing that press conference, they claim that they did not say that they recovered any gun. So that is to infer that we did not recover any gun. But one of their witnesses who claimed to be a watchman while sitting on a fence and saw somebody running, he ran after this person. This person, after shooting too expertly and of course firing back at the police, was running, and this watchman was running after him. While he was running, he was still able to dismantle this gun. And when actually wrestled down by this gunman, this watchman, he threw the gun at him and escaped and continued to run. But this gunman that watchman that wrestled him down could not even tell Fala Denoko Mukoyamala to Malmo. But I kido mean dismantled while running. I atebu wala barate waje no wadi bokono. Kabira ate waje akate minke wala nyindiko. He called his boss, and his boss told him to actually hide the gun somewhere and he will arrange for it to be picked up. Let's pin it at that. For instance, I am sitting somewhere in the streets and I saw somebody running. What will inform my decision to run after that person? This becomes the question. I am sitting out in the streets. Somebody is running past me, and all of a sudden I start running after this person. On what basis? It's either I hear people saying he's a thief or sache, or I know people are running after him, but you did not see anybody running after somebody. You just saw somebody running past you, and then you start running after the person, and then you wrestle the person down. This is how people do things in Gambia now. Probably if I am running in the streets of my hood, I better be careful because somebody will just wrestle me down. Because running is now a crime. Is that what you're trying to tell us? That is untrue. But again, let's continue. While he wrestled this person down, the person threw a gun at him and the person escaped and he picked the gun. His boss told him to hide the gun somewhere and never to tell anybody, and he will arrange for it to be picked up. What does his boss know about the gun? What does his boss know about this particular activity? Or what does his boss understand from what had happened to actually suggest without any information, just, oh, I run after somebody and he threw a gun at me and the gun is here. Hey, hide it somewhere and don't tell anybody. I will arrange for it to be picked up. What do I know about it to actually suggest that hide it and don't tell anybody and I will arrange for it to be picked up? What do I know about it? What does the boss know about it? And again, you did as your boss suggests. You hide the gun somewhere and of course probably did not tell anybody. Why did your boss and you not call the police immediately so that the police can come and recover this gun on the day of that incident? But your boss told you to hide the gun somewhere and he will arrange for it to be picked up. And the police came to court, specifically Francis Jatta, to tell us that we did not pick this gun until after certain days, either 10 days or so. And then the gun cannot be subjected to DNA simply because it is exposed to rain and of course sunlight. That is concealment. Katuko. ntanga kido ayam amari yambun kido nyinna mbe sila la fon immediately mbe police la kolla nga fo yal nanande nga mola bayndi malom fon ntanga jeki tal mbe sirim fenso kan nga amari bayndi ayam bunnan kido la kido fele la renjam police oli na kama joni barala ma wokede wo somo mo be ya mo news to ko hey ko mole police fula fajam hani wo be atol man police ol kol ka fo ko tol nga kido to bon jannet wo sinin ndingo man sakunda e press conference o atol man police ol kol ka fo ko na kido nyin kamat wo sinin ndingo police ol fon e press conference o atol ma fo le ko kido fele jande until after 10 days Masakunda came back to tell us that new watchman on ala boss wale tola witness ulti. People who actually concealed the mother weapon for almost 10 days and they rendered it useless because it cannot be subjected to DNA. These are people who should be charged for concealment of evidence. But these are the witnesses of the state. These are the witnesses of the state. Nyinta pale molu wallo Masakunda la witness soluti. Kadu haniya fo nyama tole bi kombe sirim fenso la kanga moja boro la nga mari bayani ayembun kido la nga kuma na boss kumane ako nyama bo kana fo moye ndafana nsonta wala ma fo moye and then mba moye kan banko be kanko mole police olfa hani wo be daring wo kuoka ni manke to nyati nden to nyade nyimu faniality. It is a deliberate and calculated move to make sure that there is no traceable evidence. Mini bara talebe do kuala Masakunda la kono wale atina. They did everything to make sure at every level. Hani ayata da konyin kiti obanda ni nata foye modolo mutamol nata alonko kari nyole ake. How are you going to trace those evidence? They could come and say mage katu ninja lo singo before on they actually made sure that there is a mastery of the execution so that traceability becomes non-existent. Wale atina the gun cannot be subjected to DNA. And that is why they all say that they cannot recognize the person who perpetrated the crime. But of course, they are the potential perpetrators and they need to be investigated because deliberately lying and of course hiding a gun that you had no business whatsoever to do with it is cruel and criminal. Mone atina police wole kumandika wole investigate to be part of the broader investigation scheme. But of course, they narrowed their investigation and limited it to Usainu Bojang because they know that of course, this is our own act of criminality and banditry. Because new one thing, you cannot identify a wrong suspect and went on to know that this is a wrong suspect. And then you deliberately and intentionally attempted to format his phone and of course to lie against him. So this is what the Attorney General need to answer. This is what my party need to answer. And this is probably every other commentator, including the president, need to answer. Either in his capacity as president or a private citizen who has a right to write to his opinion. This is what existed. But still on the chronology of events. Wakola mune natake. Iko itolie drive wole soto. Minko itolie ko on the day of that incident. At around 11 p.m. He actually picked Ami from wherever. Went with her all the way to Brufut. Picked Usainu Bojang. Took them all the way to Brikama Garage. But alnela moy fanyala jang. Ako ate Ami pick around 11. Attending Amitada for Brufut was Sudo. Ye Usainu pick na. Now it's him, Ami, and Usainu. Now they are driving back. Alonko, during that period, there was heavy military presence or security presence around Turntable all the way to, Airport Johnson. But a tambita was checkpoint to Lubeladi. Ako while Ami and Usainu were talking in Jola predominantly, kabiri tata foi futata kadiamu kula mimbe dendim poliso la sayala. Woli afonin kando la te kango mimmoi. But moro, common sense will tell you ko hanin nibe kachala mu kote ngol bije lafta fem fola mi yalon hana manke kuriya kuti malla fi modoli ya moy mba fola kanna la itolo mam mimmoy but inta jola kan fola fonga futa kanna mi yalon ko what is going to incriminate me and that is going to speak to something that could actually expose me ngana o fo kanna ite o mimmoy ya mera yo fo moy mi yalon ko hakilo bala o mari be sonna wala ba bara janni wo fango You know, nying drive ni ya fango dunne, and masakunda nyanta mutala lenu, but a man sonka muta, and they claim that he is their witness. But ya long abeta another, he is not the person who drove these people. Abe fanialla, he is brought to lie. He was coached to lie, and of course he did lie, and his lies will come after him someday, because the script is still going to be maintained until the day that this government is no more, and this person will be brought to be asked the questions. Ami, in her testimony, and of course, Usenu, they both claim, and of course, with other witnesses, that Usenu benum brufut le wasuto fa so mo tilebulo. Barete ko lungo min na nying crime keta, wolungo suto lete wole samba. Wotete Usenu jumani, ami jumala samba, fete jinol le samba ba. Bara abekeno la jinol da maltikat, ateko kabira amining Usenu samba kabo, wherever she picked army for Yundum Lombang, ate wasambala for Brufud, ye Usieno pick nang, and ate wasambanang all the way to Brikama, but a kabiri woldunta Brikama Garaso kono ako Usieno ni amibe sonkola, Usieno kayako, police ola fang konya kong, nkana dung, pasasi motola in the garage. Listen to this lie, listen to this cheeky cheap thing. Again, anybody muso mimbe sambaka, eko eni wofutara Garaso do andung atenying driver ate ya mwele atoli ya foko itele police olfa anda ate ya mwele kote ngitele ko police ole ko ite ko ikana moto ta garaso kono. So that is suggesting that there is a police co-conspirator. So where is that police co-conspirator? Who among the police was arrested? None. But their witness claim that while Ami and Usainu were in his car, he said that police were kateko. So that means police were be Usainu mako en kakakana muna atin ne manta o police muta. But again, Nyindraivo Minko atele samba on the night of that incident, when in reality they went the next day in the afternoon. But let's still agree that Nyindraivo le samba. But Nyindraivo be samba kan tumo minako kabiri be Brikama Garaso kono wale be osonkola. Brikama Garaso is next to Brikama police station. You as a responsible citizen, ya moy karo kontele police olufa andung obe kana kuole nyine kam andu ibetela moto kono andite tulo yo moy ite you are just next to the police station moro mbala murunde la moto kono len nale be dum moto kono ngaton kom kal samba dasela me nyame mbenna moto bundale be lokola len nale dum police station kono ngafo ko al nanande nge mutale nti itolle afon tulo ya moy, but you still took them all the way to the border in your own lies. Do you not even understand that while you were lying, you were actually incriminating yourself, because then you are well aware, it is known to you that this person had confessed something that you've heard, and upon hearing it, you still continue to help this person to escape. Muna otebe ami mutanola nyadi le yete tuje, into nyani ntinongola ba kuokona. Katal ko amila be Usieno mako ekanka escape, but nyin drive okate ya mwele wali obevo, hanu obe, he still actually took them to the border. But the totality of everything the driver said is false, because he said he took them on the night of the incident, when in reality Ami only left and Usieno only left Gambia, or actually left the next day in the afternoon. So that means the totality of the witness and everything that he had said is just lies. So that is completely discredited. But not only is it a lie, but also is self-incriminating. So he had incriminated himself. Just like the watchman incriminated himself. Just like the boss of the watchman incriminated himself. So these ones are guilty of concealment, while the other one is actually guilty of knowing that this person killed the cops and helped him to escape. But while we continue on, the chronology of events, Mama Ajabi, who was basically the third prosecution witness, wale kontolieko, atema Usienu londawo dato. Ate kumandiro le soto ateni hore janyol president wala sister ani wodi wala ni molle diamote kay ko police fulala fata nyimbanko kanjang. Ngamodo la filibante kumolo moyi e ka foko bare Usienu futara no mama kanyadi le abe mune bore kanung ya long language, the semantics of it, and of course the dictions that we try to use, and of course the wordings we try to use. Sometimes we use equivocation, words that would have multiple meanings to deceive the mentality and of course the mindset of the people to shoot our needs. Traveling is not running away. And trying to seek spiritual redress to your problems is not running away. So useno tamata la tada kasamas because anyin problem kar na anyin tubabu kar problem kar lesoto. Itata sile la platform ria for mole ko useno kamune bori because iba dundi kam molla mine la kono ko kate be bori silo la kan. Moro katama anenka bori wala fadatale. So equivocation is unapplicable in this case because aliye fengo femfo we will debunk it because you have an intention to lie against an innocent person to actually suit your political desires. But this is not politics. This is about justice, and of course accountability cannot be suspended. So mama mo futa da gara soto ako gara sin ko gara imagine atolo kontole momi mu rebeloti o mam borno kata rebel kunda bara fokata gara soto ka ko mbe moro le nyine kan bara mo fala o kata mane moro nyine la ni mo fa mane ta muru na ila wulo kono ba weta mu rebeloti tam mo fala ita dalta ko kusi falal so ibe ta mane nyine la gara soto ka fo gara sin ko le ko mbe moro le nyine kan woli na foete ko Gambia musu dole bi jande musu moro la mate ye direct woya ye chikaning ino motorcycle la ke samba fo mama ya bare ifuta ringo mama ya alinsonga salite be salola mama be jamfaringila bare ba wate ya lonne already ko police le fata Gambia ayeteje ite nyalantolo be nyaming because you were undergoing some either mental distress and of course everything that you are going. See, capitalize on the vulnerability of this person to deliberately and intentionally frame them. But hanu wabe ala bota akoto atela fita minna mo wasoto no marila katu kafo eko heyalo ne nyiminke tande kanyim police fulafa while Usenu is talking about natubabu ay bagaso lebe di molla na ni ya mol fango dunda nyola nge bolose nyaawo nya bare ko nya tambita la dorong and then Usenu mam mimfo itolo ko wofo kafo ko akonga Barrow bolose nga dolo moye la video lo male kafo ko ha bare mama la ko Usenu ko puri adama ko la bolose mama e mimfo is not what matters, it's what comes out of Usenu's mouth yemi mo itulola but mama e mimfo ni ko be rely la waka along ko imutonya tano fasa laleti. That would not work here because we will make sure that we debunk every lie and every intention to frame innocent people out of your wickedness and malicious intents. And that is why when this audio on the basis of which Mama was giving 1 million, aliye man 1 million o diala abukola ko ninta da biti ko dombe jio sana. Moro nka kodole dila yena jio dinna. Bare moye futa atoli ya kodo di wala woman anything credible di atolla atolin tolla namu kodota aliya di mama jabila $1 million. Now $1 million is given to mama on the basis that she actually had a confession from Usenu Bojang and that was recorded. But that tells you the level of investigation, security, and of course the practice in our country. This is how that I thought the police force was a very sophisticated institution. But this appears to be the weakest institution ever. Because mama mam fendunga tolobulu atolientola kodo chikali adi mama la. After the fact, aliya mama la audio be investigate, I'll not realize ko manayara fang kuta for kudo dakon naman ke fonyot. Excuse me. Wala nyintiko, mama ye mindia atoli you transcribe. Before you give 1 million to mama, you should have called mama for questioning in a positive light. Mama, nyine confess tete abang, a confess ta nyadile, ay mune foye, ay foye nyadile. Wakuma kangole beta bulu muntole, mu statement le bijemi ya lonko seda jaro lontol se rely no minikang audio fele. Aliye lamoy audio la ni mama betara siring aliye lamoy ala aliye lamoy ku ala koten aliye lamoy ala aliye mol bulang ka transcribe ni a transcribe fa pare aliye mama re-invite kotenke aliye transcription o bejibe alni mama until you are sure that mama has tendered to you a very credible, reliable and dependable evidence that if you go to any court of law you are able to secure a conviction. Alama woke aliye bataro kono aliye mola kodo chika aliye adi nyim bataro la alko mota wenye ninkala nyim bankoka mba ninkala la kai aliye na kodo chika aliye adi mama la out of your gross incompetence, out of your gross negligence. And at some point I felt it was a deliberate act of criminality. Kato criminal ya man tambi mama audio diato la fenta audio nyinkono atarale mulla million diala aliye na murun ko tenga ka fontol yeko banko dingol beko o audio filitale o talta na kodo kama mama bulu banko dingol be nyanta wulilale ya foko mama na kodo sendi ning mama ta sendi la Adama Barrow ya jo This is what needs to happen. Because the president actually gave a bounty or pronounced a bounty, Mama saw a vulnerable situation, capitalized on it, besides to say that I saw somebody and the person who is claimed to be a rebel, and then he just jumped and said, and then you could not actually get the totality of the person's statements, or the statements you got just turned out to be like complete lies. But those lies did not only stop at Mama. Mama told the lies and gave the police those audios, and these audios actually, made it their way all the way to the Ministry of Justice. And the Ministry of Justice also, upon knowing that there is nothing in this audio, came to court and lie that the audio is lost. Is the Ministry of Justice, was the Ministry of Justice trying to know the truth about this case, or they were also part of the concealment to make sure that they secure a conviction to cover up for the government? The Attorney General cannot in any way excuse himself from this big blow, including the rearrest, not that which I call kidnapping, and everything that has to do with it. So it's important that we actually look into. So actually talking to us about, the new prosecutor you are actually getting for jamming, days crimes here and there. This is not the time for that. Wait until the prosecutor comes to the Gambia, organize a press conference, and let the journalists ask you and the prosecutor questions they need to ask. That's why you could not in any way answer the questions that were asked today, because the prosecutor was absent. So why do you actually organize a press conference in relation to a prosecutor who is not even in the country? Does it make any sense? Ning ayatara ko masakunda ko kudola dunde nyim press conference ol kunta wotete ntolla kudola tinyabi. Bare malola balto de. Alta alfa bonni no la nyim ko kono de. Moli nyama made. Ale dunia lo nyami ngalo wala nyama. Ale nyimboyo arrestu mo minna, ali yalo no ka balla mutola kono, ala taro alla muto kono, ala ko nga finti nga wuliafo banko dingoli, nga banko dingol landi that single narrative la, kato nga nyimmi muta, ata diamu no la fangoye, and there will be nothing to counter to la claim, therefore there will be only that single narrative that we will spew, and we will make the government, the country believes in that, we will go and prosecute that, and we will make sure that we secure a conviction on those lies, deceit and manipulation. But I love telling you in kala kukili na labadi ngolo. Kabirin Gambia mansa kundaye yankuba ture samba kitiola. Kabirin kitio be kumfala lungo minna. Ya kamera al samba nan kiti bungo kono la nying Ibrahima jete kilimo. Asonta pour kamera li dungala kiti bungo kono. Pour ya atela nying judgment no nying televised. And then Gambian kolo be dawoda dunia dula were able to follow the proceedings live in court. Omu kukenda bala tintolobe sonta. Bare mune ya tinna journalist ol ye Ibrahima jeta nyininka fontoli se nyin fenko kenola life akoy life water kenola bare kay go science a record no le bampur nim bota jang so ma sining nyim video le tara molo bulu moli aje ko the live video of this judgment. Police all nata nang atara kiti kunto dama muta follow. They actually took all the cameramen outside. Iko camera rinta kelajang for security reasons. Why did the police interfere with the judicial process? Because in the court of law, the only person who has the jurisdiction and right over his premises is the judge. So why did the police defy the judge in his own courtroom? Kato ninjojo sonda ko walisa camera in kenole mune batin na la police who do not have any jurisdiction right whatsoever, who are all under the law. Is only the judge who presides over what happens within his courtroom had agreed that these people can actually film and of course record these proceedings. It only nata ye wol fintin de banta ko camera ta dunna nyunla fo it only ya lon ne ko judgment no betake la nyinna tibang bara ning ayata ra fam ko it only mo wolon nung. It was clear to every Gambian where the direction of the cases and where the truth is. Mune atin na sonta ala yanko la case to kati yalon na ko there they will secure a conviction. Muni atin na man song ala nyin case do wala nyinti ko police wala fongoli yalon nek from the beginning ko moro man to nyanin tilingo tama ni nyinko do wadanda to nyanin tilingo sotola je wala atin na tada e camera man ol be fintindi je pour Gambian ko kana moy e kana long min tama da nyinkiti modo ko etapale yal tilimbali yal be min kenyundula pour ni Gambian ko be amoy mol be sa nyori adam barola masa kundala mo be sa faila wala atin na yes journalist wol fintindi banta. But that act in itself is actually criminal because you have no jurisdiction whatsoever to enter a court premises in the presence of the judge. Pur kanyin camera tiyo be bondije mi yalon ko the judge had actually accepted for them to film. Atol ni Jojo Jumale rise in the courtroom. So it's not about the arrest that was unlawful or probably illegal. Nini ya kumashi leka luanta ya tamande janni mfong kiti yo fong be kuntula. Katu kiti yo janna damba mutala fong inata la kiti bungo mi yalonko ino Jojo sonta puru moli filming itol nata yo film la bandije itol manya wole bondi la je kadu itol mo right so puru ko wole bondije. So ye luanta ya la tamandi woto. That is actually against the principle of fairness and justice. And of course that is judicial interference by the police. So what on Tolomang, we are not here to allow this kind of malgovernance to continue in our country. It's a shame. It's a shame on the regime. That is why we must collectively and continuously ask the question, who killed the cops? But I mean, for not in the Jakala quarter, what the police will dimila no nyadi le for itoloka, ila comment section block molie, Gambia dimolie. The police as an institution does not belong to any individual. It's nobody's biological inheritance, it's nobody's personal property, and nobody whatsoever has any right to block people from commenting on the police, page. Because the police page is a national institution and it belongs to all citizens of this country, and you cannot in any way attempt to block or censor citizens or deny them information. Today. We are documenting facts de. Lumbe sila ni be nyine kala kana kumbode. You don't own the police. Don't personalize institutions. Don't take it at heart because this does not belong to you. Nyimpejo sotora la jani itaka dum police. And nyimpejo wetara la jani hanita bota police. Molle ite saba nyimpala soto and molle be sele noto nyimpala soto. Odo ni be do ko la mansa kunda ise hakiloto. Katu itata sila bi ite sembe ma wara Gambia dinwo Gambia dinnati mi yati na dalil ita man dalil wo dalil la soto ka moli jibe ila bankola pejo mbedenta minna ita ka moli block woto ni lafta moli block la wait until they make comments on your personal Facebook. But a state institution, taxpayers' money, taxpayers' institution, ita ka Gambia dinwo block woto, denying them information, censoring citizens of our own country on mundalil kan Tilimbaliani Luantaya, Nimbanko Dole Be Sambala Kitio Lakavoko, this person blocked me on the police page, denying me access to information. Anungamira Gambia Fanande Fondinke Dolnyanda Wulalde, they actually take legal actions on this matter because government institutions cannot continue to censor citizens and of course censor our opinions and of course censor what we think. No. We have the right to make commentaries on public institutions and we have the right to ask the right question if you think that konga luale tinya waton samba luato, but you don't have any monopoly of rights to actually block people or actually censor people's commentaries. Ima wo right soto. Tanko moro eke kuolong enin tolbe den tanyum bankolale. Ela mo nyanta diamule elde imantre fang samba ku kande. Palaso manjari go belade. Molle tarata nyim palaso do sanji jama janite bar namna moy ko doto ko police wol ye mol ila comment section of close monena mo moy. Why should you close the comment section? Simply because people are asking who killed the cops. Wala kete dimi andu ite ko ite ni nyin le trenta nyola wol mi tela badge mates nyola anu ko ite tolma ko kabiri ye nyim police wol fa kilingo mimbe baluoto ansi jawo mi ya lon ko police wol be balanding ka makoy masa kunda be balanding ka makoy kabiring atol law badge mates nyol ye kodo gada nyokang pour ite ni mo kote ngol pour atol ye ta pour kata ansi jibe loptano do pour ali kodo sindal police wol fon latol bali ka warije. Imagine the person you trained with. You have that, practice within that badge mates. That nimmo sasa nyala to lokono. Alka kodo la nyokang. Puru mo kili yeta. Wala mo dantang ala senior men lokono. Wali yeta nyim mari jibe. Ala sasala. Ya tandala kontrol be fele. Anu ale domano mimfanankafu. Ali odial. Atoli obeke police oli atol bali. Ka ansi jawoje. But again, that brings the question. Why will the police deny the police from seeing ansi jawo? Oron tolo nyama ma. Moni nyama ma de. Poliso balika ansi jawoje. Mi yalon ko akata jibela dorong andu woni mi fanam babula atandala ko moro afele ndol fana nga nyina so. Wala tin ko gambian ko leko. Ndol la nyanta mbulo dunna nyobul nga nyimu sindingo makoy. Nimma nyim makoy poliso lita nyim makoy la. Man sakunda ta nyim makoy la. E nyuntu jela pula e tora. Therefore, we have to probably communicate to a couple of people. So we run a massive GoFundMe for this lady. Try to see what the medical reports are. Wherever we can fly her to get treatment, we basically help and do it. Because the government for 2 years, 6 months did not do it. We cannot watch this woman die like that. Just like other people were shot dead. If the government is really serious, they would have taken this lady to international treatment as recommended by medical practitioners. But they've abandoned her. And we cannot continue to abandon her as people. So therefore, it is our collective responsibility to run some massive GoFundMes to support Ansi Jao and make sure that she deserves, and of course she gets the treatments that are still not done. A couple of people would basically have to coordinate to see how we support this lady. Because itole lafita minna no ninyi ye woke. Oseno basi yo bela kala kasoko. Kato wala nyende ko sonko ite karo sutele atelom. Ni wo sonta nonko ate nyin sutele and atelom. That was a foregone conclusion. But I jibele ko ning ala tema ning kila tema ndane nyine mimbe doku wala ndoku nyolo ya wala fanya jawala yende fango bunga ko nsi fano je ndanga murun ko dengen ndanga tonya tanofo wala sayado ala man tankalala manyilong nana maje nana man kudunte ngaja la telephone lo kono nyami alka jal tal kono nyami ngaje nta kono wala nyama. We had no problem whatsoever with anybody. That is not pleasing to the government, and that is why they've abandoned the woman. So we should support this woman. We should actually make sure that this woman lives a comfortable life, because that is a patriotic son of this country. That is a person who did not betray the cause of policing. That is a woman who remained loyal to the people that she was serving with, who were killed in their line of duty. But again, how would the police actually mount a checkpoint of just 3 constables? Maybe in Telefanaman policing understand, but I don't understand how you don't even have a sergeant or a senior man that you just put up a checkpoint of only 3 constables. Police constables, inexperienced people who had probably not long from training. Ali wolda mal londi wodla, ali londi tapalian in tilimbali alaje. So this is the point. Ansi Jao deserves support. I was talking to a couple of people this morning, but we would try to see how best we could basically raise funds for this lady, because new one thing, itoli enya kasala yada bala kuotola sanji fula kari woro moro nimang mako ro soron no dumala long fon kidike sola dunta nyinjato kono. Asafano la sa mantora nole. Barabe Dokuala Gambia lay, while working for the Republic of the country, she was shot in her line of duty, but the government failed to take its responsibility to make sure that this lady recovers fully. So ite amira wolman kulong police la nyin sayato. Wata mune ebula to nyata no fola quote. This is the point. So they shouldn't have been at that location in the first place, let alone just police constables ali wolda malkeje. Police will mean bebe Gambia cooking also wolonde, including itaminka molla comments will block, eka mol individually block on the page. We will continue to report that page because nyimmo Gambia be them be page. Ida matande. Mini alonko wolie kataku jamal lekeje to bring this page to where it is today. You are actually bringing the page to disrepute. You are actually bringing the police to dishonor. Of course, you are actually, bringing disrespect to the institution, and then you are actually increasing more suspicion on the institution by trying to censor citizens' opinion. But where I want to actually conclude this conversation is to critically look at the appeal. An appeal is not really to say, oh, the president said he believed in this and that is what is going to happen. No. 3 judges of the Court of Appeal would sit over the judgment that, Justice Jata did. But a coup killing the Alisa Walong. From the chronological look of things and events that had happened in this case, to the totality of all the submissions that were actually detailed in the judgment, there is no way, nowhere, even on planet Mars, that anybody can fault Justice Jete, because there is nothing intentionally or unintentionally that anybody can say that he actually did not actually address. Everything was addressed point by point, and there is nothing that was overlooked in this judgment. Everything was detailedly captured, and of course you can only arrive to one conclusion, and that is the conclusion that was arrived at, that is to acquit and discharge. Anybody who thinks otherwise, Tilimbalian in Tajidinti Alebeto, and of course the president now injecting politics and his opinion to it, his opinion will not determine what comes out of the courts. While we hope that the Court of Appeal does what is right for the country, we continue to ask the question who killed the cops, and where the government failed to investigate it impartially and justly, we will ask until we oust this government to make sure a new government comes to make sure justice is done. Because we cannot continue to have governments that will come and kill Gambians and turn around and to be manipulative, deceitful, and then come back to Gambians to continue to vote for them so that they can continue to perpetrate heinous crimes on our citizens. But for the NPP, I have to conclude with you. And ngali jele nta fono la atole ya dada kata kwenta ntela loko, you know, usienu Gambia kaito lo babulle anda kwenta naloko Senegal kaito lo babulle. Yo budung atole ka kaito lo mini fintindi fo lo mu kaito tonyal te fo kaito tonyal nteta wo fono la. But because I try to make sure that ntabe fengo fem fola, I'm not defending anything that is not based on truth. So mamilonte wo fola. But I quite nalako Senegal kaito lobe Usainu Bulle, and because there was a moment he was to travel to Barcelona during that process, you know, look, I can actually go get Senegalese citizenship, because on the simple fact that if you look at my lineage, there is a part of it that actually, look, every Karoninka is from Karon. Karoninka is not a tribe. Karoninka is simply a man from Karon. So if that is basically where our roots are, and that is typically in Casamance, every one of us can claim citizenship in Senegal, just like I can do. Because at one point I even thought of it, look, if you have business interests in Senegal, I'd rather have Senegalese documents and be considered a citizen than use Gambian documents in Senegal, where I'm going to be considered like a foreigner. But I can claim Senegalese citizenship. And other people go there because they wanted to travel via Nicaragua, and to travel through Nicaragua to America or other places, it's simple with a Senegalese passport. How many people live abroad who actually hold British, American, and other passports? Ni nata Gambia, what do? They take visas at our airport. And when you Gambia dingol letemini alonke wuluta Bangkoka. But atolla, you know, o document on yinsia where atolla man sakundale expose further, because atol malong alkaminke hane atara ko alia fania kaito le fintindi but sai ni usieno manke Gambian koti kato le afonyami atol ko mo Senegalelti. How did the Senegalese authorities hand over a Senegalese to you that cheaply? Jumale usieni di atol ngam na Senegalese authority le adia le kala Gambia dingola nata jangi kai crime la kala banko kala fela naita baral ko nyom Senegalelta manke Gambian not. In 2014 or thereabout, Usain, because I still cannot get access to Usain's documents, wherever, but in 2014, Usain opened an account with one of the banks in the Gambia, and the account was opened with a Gambian identification card, Gambian ID card. Almanyamende. Because one thing about you people is that you think that this guy has got nobody, he knows nobody. Atolman connecting told. That is why I said I have more information than the government machinery in its totality in relation to this case. But again, let's put that aside and let's agree that, of course, he's not a Gambian, he's a Senegalese. Do Senegalese work in Brikama Area Council like your government told us that Usain Bojang works in Brikama Area Council? Let's agree he's not a Gambian, he's a Senegalese. Do Senegalese actually take part in UDP's politics that you people said he's a member of the UDP and is, of course, Yankuba Dabo's security, and he was in that court case with a gun? Yalon sign what. But again, let me even say that ali document umi fintini tonya document olo. But atoli also nyadi le bahum ni mo kotengol. Do you now want to tell me that the police now leak people's official documents or investigation documents to NPP surrogates? Look, use your brains, because the way you people are going about things, you are discrediting this government, and of course it would mean everything and anything to vote out a regime that is as incompetent as this one. Wala atin na gis nga, you know, boy am ene bu bon sinit nga emale ko fena. Mbanyel tahut nga tumal nit doma. Dolo len dal. Because yo bo ñu ne tay Ousseynou du Gambian Sénégalais la waaye yeni neen kon léegi man lu may def sax comme que yéen loolu ngeen wax, we will write to the Senegalese government to tell them how you people have lied against its citizen, how you people have framed its citizen, how you people have tortured its citizen, how you people have rearrested unlawfully its citizen, so that Gambia and Senegal can actually understand that Gambia government is actually subjugating a Senegalese citizen. How about that? But let me ask the simple question. What has documentation has to do with killing the cops. What is the connection between documentation and killing? That question will refer you to the motive. The motive now is to put to the minds of the people that, oh, this person is not a Gambian and you are fighting for a non-Gambian. Ngo, hani ayadaro ko usenu bojang boda bamakule. To nyamu kilineti. That even if he is from planet Mars and he is not even born on Earth, there is only one truth, and that truth must be guided by everybody. And that is to ask the question, who killed the cops? I hold documents of multiple nations. So if I come to the Gambia, you see like documents, mini along Kamanka Gambia tatted wrong. Would you now say that I killed somebody? If I hold Senegalese nationality, so what does that speak to? That speaks to the fact that I killed anybody? Most of you who live in Europe, you have like your European IDs and all of that. So does that mean that you actually killed anybody? What is the correlation, or what is the relationship between the documents and the killing of the cops? That is the question. But Allah filibante ya Allah fahamu balia Allah malo Allah man sakunda la lankenamo wale atinna Allah man tarataka nal hakirola, and every step you people take, you actually expose yourself. So what man sakunda la nyanta folantoli mona atine fania bambalo from wale nyinkoto. And then, you know, the so-called Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Ibe Minna, wala mki famo bondi kuo kono sama sining, who knows, you might want an international appointment and your track record will be looked at. Ko itela nyaton kaya kotolong atoliye mole mutalie kidnap o aliye arrest nyala mi yalon ko tilingo ninto nyatige and ita famo sonda ko tilingo ninto nyatige bara ila oson ko lay ko ite dati jaman kete nyala bara Allah man sakundalam. Now if you know that that is against the law, go and arrest the perpetrators of that, from the Director General of Prison Services and of course to the police IGP and to the Minister of Interior. The Minister of Interior, okay, wala tapale yana la tilimbali yana la kuria obe lankane maringambia bella ngafo mafo ngalonne bara odorone betula jede bara lumbe sila simbe duma sabe duma asa koy wato badi ngol, you know, wala kuma kamati lafta mi folanu nyanta kachara no wala mukuti mi yalon ko, you know, at all times we must open our minds, we think independently, and of course we need to keep our independence and skepticism at all times. Amanke ko karla for drum tonyalom. Everything that comes to you, you have to examine the facts, because this is a regime hell bent on manipulation, lies and deceit, and all that they do is to make sure that it only tilimalian intapalayan intajindag just for them to remain. And for us to avoid that, we must continue to ask the critical questions, and of course ask those analytical questions, and of course have those inject in those reflective thinkings to ask money atin na nyinketa noteng amanke noteng nyen la moto nyati badi ngolo oto mai fati wo, you know, the president's statement wo, or you know jeda we me, it all speaks to one thing: look inwardly. Allah mo falal manjam fal fangol lade, and you had no reason to tell us what was not true de oto mi yala bula to nyata no fola nyanta of la gambian ko yala de alama mol tangala nyuma sakunda sifa la mini alon ko, you know, mol ninji ki balla kana ka ko sila o kay tilimbali anin tajirinte ya badala danal ale murung ale ke mole seling wolti ale mbeke si seling wolti na ni min diara ale na chika ale adomo ko buwa kesula ale murung ko to nyane tilimo tamala je. Imagine the guilt in the NPP, you know, National Assembly members. Katunga moy fonninke do ba usenu bojana ko fokan, you know, in the assembly, and then the so-called Sidinjai told him that ning ayokumo foje kotenka ba baila le afintin the banta in the National Assembly. Imagine an elected MP being told by a nominated sellout that he will kick him out of the assembly on the basis that he mentioned Usainu Boja. But again, for the National Assembly long Kabirim police solo fata, their next sitting, they came, everybody was condemning the act, and it was normal to condemn the act. But after the government did all the dubious and manipulation and lies on the case, it is no longer fashionable for any National Assembly. It becomes criminal for any National Assembly to mention the case in the National Assembly. Why yen? Yal na dega, you know, dox suñ digante ak nguur gi.